The silver ships appeared on Tuesday morning, hanging in space like beautiful jewels against the black sky. They came quietly, without warning or fanfare. 3 massive vessels, each one looking like carved crystal and polished metal, drifted into Earth's outer solar system and stopped just beyond Mars. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center deep beneath Colorado Springs, watching the screens with careful eyes. She had seen many things in her 30 years of military service, but nothing like this. The ships were elegant and strange, their surfaces catching sunlight and throwing it back in rainbow patterns. "Ma'am, they're broadcasting something," said Lieutenant Park, his fingers dancing over his console. "It's coming through on multiple frequencies." Sarah nodded. "Put it through." The voice that filled the room was melodic and oddly beautiful, speaking perfect English with just a hint of something musical underneath the words. "Greetings, people of Earth. We are the HFY, explorers from distant stars. We come in peace, seeking friendship and knowledge. We wish to meet with your leaders and share the gifts of science and wisdom." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. After decades of wondering if humanity was alone in the universe, here was the answer. But something in the back of her mind whispered caution. "Send word to Geneva immediately," she ordered, "and activate Protocol Omega." Lieutenant Park looked up with surprise. Protocol Omega was the most classified contingency plan in Earth's military. Only a handful of people even knew it existed. "Ma'am, are you sure?" "Just do it," Sarah said quietly, never taking her eyes off the alien ships. 3 days later, the world watched as sleek shuttles descended from the alien vessels to land at a specially prepared site outside Geneva, Switzerland. The whole planet held its breath as the first beings from another world stepped onto Earth's soil. The HFY were tall and graceful, with pale blue skin and large, intelligent eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. They wore flowing robes that seemed to shift color as they moved. Their leader, who called himself Overlord Zethkar, spoke with calm authority. "Your world is beautiful," he said to the assembled crowd of world leaders, diplomats, and reporters. "We have traveled far to meet you, drawn by the signs of intelligent life on your planet." Ambassador Marcus Webb, Earth's chief diplomat, stepped forward with a smile. "Welcome to Earth. We are honored by your presence and eager to learn about your civilization." Overlord Zethkar's lips curved in what might have been a smile. "And we are eager to learn about yours. We offer gifts of friendship." He gestured, and other HFY brought forward devices that hummed with unknown energy. "These are medical scanners that can heal any disease. These are power cells that will provide clean energy for your cities. These are computers that can solve problems your science struggles with." The world leaders gasped and murmured with excitement. Here were solutions to humanity's greatest challenges, offered freely by these elegant visitors from the stars. Dr. Elizabeth Reyes, Earth's leading scientist, examined the devices with wonder. "The technology is incredible," she whispered to Ambassador Webb. "These power cells alone could end the energy crisis forever." But Admiral Sarah Chen, watching from the back of the Great Hall, noticed things that others missed. The way the aliens' eyes moved constantly, recording everything. The subtle scans their devices performed on every human in the room. The careful questions they asked about Earth's population, resources, and military capabilities. The negotiations continued for days. The HFY were charming guests, sharing stories of other worlds they had visited and technologies that seemed like magic. They spoke of the Veltari, a species of artists whose beautiful cities they had helped to preserve. They mentioned the Morden, brilliant engineers whose inventions had enriched the galaxy. They told tales of the Kreshtai, mighty warriors who now served as guardians of peace. "So many worlds, so many friends," Overlord Zethkar said during a formal dinner. "The galaxy is vast, but intelligent life is precious. We seek to bring all thinking beings together in harmony." The world leaders were captivated. Here was hope for humanity's future among the stars, partnership with beings who seemed wise and benevolent. But late at night, in a secure bunker far from Geneva, Admiral Sarah Chen spoke quietly into an encrypted communicator. "Nemesis, this is Command. Status report. The voice that answered came from somewhere in the cold darkness of space, from a ship that no sensors, on Earth or in the alien fleet, could detect. Command, this is Captain Elena Vasquez aboard the Nemesis. We are in position and maintaining full stealth. The alien vessels show no sign of detecting us. Good. Keep watching and recording everything. I don't trust these visitors. Neither do I, Admiral. Their ships are armed with weapons I've never seen before. And there's something else. I'm picking up encrypted transmissions between their vessels. They're not speaking the same language they use with us. Sarah felt her suspicions growing stronger. Can you decode their communications? Working on it. But Admiral, if these beings are as peaceful as they claim, why are they scanning our military installations? Why are their ships positioned in perfect attack formation? And why do their gifts contain microscopic devices that I can only describe as spy equipment? Sarah's blood ran cold. You're certain about the spy devices? Positive. Every piece of technology they've given us is transmitting data back to their ships. They're mapping our world, counting our people, measuring our defenses. Keep monitoring, Elena, and be ready. Ready for what, Admiral? Sarah stared at the reports on her desk, filled with glowing descriptions of HFY generosity and wisdom. But she remembered her grandfather's stories about wolves that came to the farm looking gentle and friendly, right up until they showed their teeth. Ready for the moment they stopped pretending to be our friends. The next morning brought more celebrations as the HFY demonstrated their gravity manipulation technology, making huge blocks of stone float like feathers. Children around the world watched in wonder as the aliens created beautiful light, displays in the sky above Geneva. Overlord Zethkar stood before the cameras with his arms spread wide. This is just the beginning, he said. When you join the greater community of worlds, such marvels will be commonplace. Your species has such potential. We are honored to guide you toward a brighter future. But Admiral Sarah Chen was not watching the demonstration. She was in her command center studying sensor readings and tactical reports. The alien ships had moved during the night, positioning themselves over Earth's major cities. Their weapons, previously hidden behind elegant curves of crystal and metal, were now clearly visible to her satellites. Ma'am, Lieutenant Park said, quietly, we're detecting massive energy buildups in the alien vessels. Whatever they're planning, it's big. Sarah nodded grimly. She had hoped she was wrong, hoped that her decades of military experience had made her too suspicious. But the evidence was clear. Send a coded message to all our assets, she ordered. Tell them the honeymoon is over. In space, invisible and silent, the Terran Warship Nemesis drifted through the darkness. Captain Elena Vasquez and her crew watched the alien fleet with growing alarm. They had been humanity's secret for 20 years, built in hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt, equipped with technology the rest of the world believed was impossible. Captain, whispered her tactical officer, I've decoded some of their transmissions. You need to hear this. Elena listened to the translated alien communications, and her face went pale. The HFY were not explorers or friends. They were conquerors, and their peaceful visit was nothing more than the calm before a storm that would destroy everything humanity had ever built. The change came on a Thursday morning, exactly 21 days after first contact. The world woke to find that everything had shifted overnight. Ambassador Marcus Webb was having breakfast in his Geneva hotel room when the emergency alert flashed on his phone. Within minutes, every screen on Earth displayed the same image. Overlord Zethkar standing in what looked like a command center, his elegant robes replaced by dark armor that seemed to absorb light. People of Earth, he began, and his voice was no longer musical and kind. It was cold and sharp like breaking glass. The time for pretense is over. We have completed our evaluation of your world and your species. Webb dropped his coffee cup. Around the world, billions of people stopped what they were doing and stared at their screens in growing horror. You have been tested, Zethkar continued, as we have tested 46 other worlds before you. Some species proved useful and were incorporated into our great empire. Others proved worthless and were removed. You have 72 hours to decide which category you belong to. The image changed to show massive alien warships decloaking throughout the solar system. Hundreds of vessels, each one larger than Earth's biggest cities, bristling with weapons that glowed with deadly energy. They hung over the homeworld like a pack of wolves surrounding a wounded deer. "Surrender unconditionally," Zethkar said, "and your useful individuals will be preserved as servants and workers. Your knowledge will be catalogued. Your resources will be harvested efficiently. Resist, and you will join the Veltari, whose beautiful art cities are now ash. You will share the fate of the Morden, whose brilliant minds thought they could outsmart us. You will follow the Kreshtai warriors, whose courage meant nothing against our power." Admiral Sarah Chen watched the broadcast from her command center, her face set like stone. Around her, officers and technicians worked with desperate intensity. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Park reported, his voice shaking, "we're detecting energy signatures from the alien fleet that are off the charts. Each of those ships could level a continent." "What about our orbital defenses?" Sarah asked. "The aliens are jamming most of our satellites. The few that are still working show that our defense platforms are like toys compared to what they're bringing against us." Sarah nodded grimly. She had expected this, but the reality was still overwhelming. Humanity's mightiest weapons were nothing against technology that could manipulate gravity and bend space itself. "Get me President Morrison," she ordered. Emergency session of world leaders was chaos. Presidents, prime ministers, and generals all talking at once, their faces pale with terror on the video screens. "We have to surrender," said President Kowalski of the European Federation. "Look at those ships. They could destroy us without breaking a sweat." "Maybe we can negotiate," suggested Prime Minister Chen of the Pacific Alliance. "Offer them something. They want more than conquest." "What could we possibly offer them?" demanded President Morrison of North America. "They've been studying us for 3 weeks. They know everything about our technology, our resources, our people. If they wanted to trade, they wouldn't need an invasion fleet." Admiral Sarah Chen listened to the arguments with growing impatience. Finally, she spoke up. "With respect, ladies and gentlemen, we're missing the point. This isn't about negotiation or surrender. This is about survival." "But Admiral," President Morrison said, "our combined military forces are no match for even one of their ships, let alone hundreds." Sarah's expression was unreadable. "Perhaps, but we won't know until we try." The alien demonstration began an hour later. A small Kethvari ship, no larger than a destroyer, approached one of Earth's uninhabited islands in the Pacific. The world watched as a beam of pure energy lanced down from space and simply erased the island from existence. Where there had been rock and trees and beaches, now there was nothing but boiling water. Overlord Zethkar's voice echoed across every communication channel on Earth. "That was a gentle reminder of our capabilities. Tomorrow, if you have not surrendered, we will demonstrate our power on one of your cities. The choice is yours." In the command center beneath Colorado Springs, Admiral Sarah Chen gave orders that would have seemed insane to anyone who didn't know the full truth about humanity's preparations. "Launch all conventional forces," she commanded. "Every ship, every fighter, every missile we have in space." "Ma'am," Lieutenant Park protested, "that's suicide. Our weapons can't even scratch their hulls." "I know," Sarah said quietly, "but we need to make them believe we're desperate. We need them to think, this is all we have." The battle began at dawn. Earth's space fleet, brave but hopelessly outmatched, threw themselves against the alien armada. Human fighters buzzed around the massive Kethvari ships like angry wasps attacking giants. Missiles and energy beams lit up the darkness of space, creating a light show that could be seen from the ground. It was magnificent and terrible and completely hopeless. The aliens barely seemed to notice the attacks. Their shields absorbed everything humanity could throw at them. Occasionally, when a human ship got too close or too annoying, a casual energy beam would swat it aside like brushing away a fly. Overlord Zethkar broadcast again, and this time, he was laughing. "Is this the best you can do?" he asked mockingly. "Your brave pilots die for nothing. Your weapons are toys. Your defenses are paper walls. 46 worlds have tried to resist us, and all have fallen within hours of showing. Their strength, you are no different. But even as humanity's conventional forces were being destroyed in space, Admiral Sarah Chen was not watching the battle. She was in communication with someone else entirely. Nemesis, this is command. Report. Captain Elena Vasquez's voice came, through the encrypted channel, calm and professional despite the chaos around them. Command, we have been observing and recording everything. The alien weapons operate on quantum frequencies we've never seen before. Their shields use gravitational distortion fields. But Admiral, I think we've found something interesting. Go ahead. They're overconfident, sloppy. They're not even scanning for threats they can't see. Their entire fleet is positioned as if they're absolutely certain nothing can surprise them. Sarah felt the first glimmer of hope she'd had all day. Weaknesses? Several. Their shield generators are centralized on each ship. Take out the generator, and the whole vessel becomes vulnerable. Their weapons have a charge time of approximately 30 seconds between maximum power shots. And Admiral, they're bunching their ships together because they've never faced an enemy that could hurt them. How long do you need? Give us 6 more hours to finish our analysis. We want to be absolutely sure we can make this count. Sarah looked at the tactical displays showing Earth's forces being methodically destroyed in space. You have 6 hours. Make them count. As night fell over Earth, the alien fleet moved into final attack positions above the planet's major cities. Zethkar's ultimatum echoed around the world. Surrender by dawn or watch civilization burn. In secret bunkers and hidden command centers, the leaders of Earth made their final preparations. Most believed they were preparing for the end of everything they had ever known. But Admiral Sarah Chen and Captain Elena Vasquez knew differently. They were preparing for humanity's greatest gamble, a desperate plan that had been 20 years in the making. The aliens thought they had won. They had destroyed humanity's visible defenses, scattered its fleets, and demonstrated their overwhelming power. They had done exactly what they had done to 46 other worlds, and it had always worked before. But humanity had been watching the stars for a very long time. They had been preparing for this day since the first human looked up at the night sky and wondered what might be looking back. The Kethvari had made one crucial mistake. They assumed that what they could see was all there was to see. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The dawn of the final day broke red over a world preparing for its last battle. Across Earth, the remaining fragments of humanity's space force gathered for one desperate strike against the alien fleet. It was a pathetic sight, but it was all they seemed to have left. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in her command center, watching the tactical displays with an expression that looked like grim determination mixed with growing despair. Around her, officers coordinated what appeared to be humanity's final military effort. "Ma'am, the lunar bases are reporting ready," Lieutenant Park announced, his voice hollow with exhaustion. "What's left of them anyway?" The alien bombardment had been systematic and brutal. 3 of Earth's 4 moon bases were smoking ruins. The orbital defense platforms were debris floating in space. The great space station Columbus had been vaporized so completely that not even wreckage remained. "Order all remaining units to converge on the alien flagship," Sarah commanded. "If we're going down, we'll go down fighting." Above them, Overlord Zethkar's massive command ship hung over Geneva like a dark angel of death. The alien vessel was beautiful and terrible, its crystal surfaces reflecting the sunlight while weapon ports glowed with contained energy that could crack planets. "Your time is up, humans." Zethkar's voice echoed across every communication system on Earth. "You have chosen resistance over wisdom. You will join the other foolish species that thought courage could defeat superior technology." The final battle began with humanity's last fighters screaming up from Earth's atmosphere, their engines burning bright against the morning sky. Missiles launched from hidden bunkers, following trajectories calculated to converge on the alien fleet's weakest points. The survivors from the lunar bases fired everything they had in one coordinated assault. It was beautiful and brave and utterly hopeless. The alien shields absorbed the human weapons like water soaking into sand. Energy beams reached out from the Kethvari ships with casual precision, swatting human fighters from the sky. Within minutes, the desperate attack was over, and humanity's last military assets were burning wreckage falling toward Earth. "Magnificent," Zethkar said, broadcasting to the world. "Your species shows courage worthy of respect. It is almost a shame to destroy you. But the galaxy belongs to the strong, not the brave." In the command center, Admiral Sarah Chen appeared to slump in defeat. Her officers hung their heads, staring at screens that showed nothing but destruction and loss. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Park whispered, "should we send the surrender signal?" Sarah looked around at her staff, these men and women who had served with distinction and were now facing the end of everything they had sworn to protect. Her voice was quiet but carried clearly through the bunker. "No surrender. If they want this world, they'll have to take it from us." High above Earth, Overlord Zethkar prepared to demonstrate the price of defiance. His weapons officers targeted major population centers, while his communications specialists prepared to broadcast humanity's final moments to any species in the galaxy that might be watching. "Begin bombardment," he ordered. "Start with their capital cities. Let them watch their civilization crumble before we finish them." The first energy beam lanced down toward London, a spear of light that would have erased the ancient city in seconds. But something impossible happened. The beam struck an energy shield that appeared from nowhere, a barrier of crackling force that deflected the alien weapon harmlessly into space. Zethkar stared at his tactical displays in confusion. What was that? Where did that shield come from? His sensor officers worked frantically at their consoles. "Unknown, my lord. Our scans show no shield generators in that area. No power sources capable of generating that kind of defensive field." "Scan again. Humans do not possess such technology." But even as he spoke, more shields appeared over New York, Tokyo, Moscow, and Beijing. Every major city on Earth was suddenly protected by barriers that his instruments insisted did not exist. "My lord," his tactical officer reported, voice tight with confusion, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the human solar system, but our sensors show nothing there. It's as if the energy is coming from empty space." Captain Elena Vasquez smiled grimly as she watched the alien confusion from the bridge of the Nemesis. Around her, the stealth ship's crew worked with quiet efficiency, their movements practiced from years of secret preparation. "Stealth field holding steady," reported her tactical officer. "The aliens still can't see us." "Good. Signal the other ships. It's time to even the odds." Across the solar system, humanity's true fleet began to decloak. Not the obsolete fighters and patrol ships the aliens had easily destroyed, but vessels that had been built in secret over the past 20 years. Ships that incorporated technology the public Earth governments didn't even know existed. The Nemesis was the largest, a massive dreadnought bristling with weapons that operated on principles the Kethvari had never encountered. Around her, dozens of smaller warships materialized from empty space, their hulls dark and angular, designed for stealth and devastating first strikes. "My lord!" the Kethvari sensor officer cried in panic. "Ships are appearing everywhere. Massive vessels, heavily armed. How is this possible?" Overlord Zethkar felt something he had not experienced in over a century of conquest. Genuine surprise. Where did they come from? Why didn't our sensors detect them? "Unknown, my lord. Their stealth technology is unlike anything in our databases. It's as if they were invisible to all our scanning methods." On Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen dropped her mask of defeat and spoke into her communicator with calm authority. "This is Admiral Chen to all Terran Defense Fleet units. You are authorized to engage the enemy. Show them what humanity is really capable of." The battle that followed was unlike anything the Kethvari had ever experienced. For 1,000 years, they had conquered worlds through overwhelming technological superiority. They would arrive, demonstrate their power, and watch their enemies crumble in despair. But now they faced an enemy that had been watching them, studying them, preparing for them while remaining completely hidden. The Nemesis opened fire first, her quantum disruptor cannons punching through Kethvari shields like they were made of paper. Antimatter torpedoes streaked across space, detonating against alien hulls with devastating effect. The humans used weapons the Kethvari couldn't even identify, let alone defend against. "How are their weapons penetrating our shields?" Zethkar demanded. They're using quantum field manipulation to bypass our defensive systems, his science officer reported. And my lord, their ship designs are completely optimized for stealth attacks. They've been studying our technology and building countermeasures. More human ships decloaked around the alien fleet. These weren't desperate defenders making a last stand. These were hunters who had been patiently waiting for their prey to fall into a perfectly prepared trap. Captain Vasquez watched the tactical display as her fleet systematically dismantled alien vessels that had seemed invincible minutes before. "Target their command ship," she ordered. "Let's have a conversation with their leader." The Nemesis fired a precise burst that disabled the alien flagship's weapons but left its communications and life support intact. Around them, the rest of the Kethvari fleet was learning that their 1,000-year reign of conquest was about to come to an abrupt end. "This is impossible," Zethkar whispered, watching his mighty armada being destroyed by ships that shouldn't have existed. "No primitive species has technology like this. How did they build such vessels without us knowing?" His communications officer looked up with fear in his eyes. "My lord, we're receiving a transmission from the human command ship." Captain Elena Vasquez appeared on the main screen, her expression calm and professional. Behind her, the bridge of the Nemesis hummed with advanced technology that made even Kethvari science look primitive. "Overlord Zethkar," she said politely. "I am Captain Vasquez of the Terran Defense Fleet. I believe you have something that belongs to us." "What? What do you want?" Zethkar stammered. Elena's smile was cold as space. "An apology would be nice, and reparations for the damage you've caused. But mostly I want you to understand something very important." She gestured, and the tactical display showed the remains of his once mighty fleet floating as debris around Earth. "You made the mistake of thinking that what you could see was all there was to see. You assumed that because we appeared weak, we were weak. That's the kind of error that ends empires, Overlord." Zethkar stared at the human captain, his mind struggling to process what had happened. In less than an hour, his invincible fleet had been reduced to scrap metal by an enemy he hadn't even known existed. "Surrender," Elena said simply, "and maybe we can discuss what happens next." The silence that followed Captain Vasquez's demand stretched across space like a held breath. On the bridge of his crippled flagship, Overlord Zethkar stared at the tactical displays that showed the impossible truth. His mighty fleet, the same armada that had conquered 46 worlds, was dying around him. "My lord," his tactical officer whispered, "we've lost 60% of our vessels. The remaining ships are reporting critical damage. Their weapons are unlike anything we've encountered." Zethkar's hands trembled as he gripped his command chair. For over a century, he had been the sword of the Kethvari Empire. He had broken worlds and shattered civilizations. He had watched entire species kneel before his power. And now, in the span of one impossible hour, everything he believed about Kethvari's superiority had crumbled to dust. "How?" he demanded, his voice cracking. "How did primitive humans develop such technology? Our intelligence report showed them barely capable of interplanetary travel." Captain Elena Vasquez's image remained on his main screen, her expression patient but implacable. "You're making the same mistake again, Overlord. You're assuming your intelligence was accurate." Elena gestured, and the display changed to show Earth as it truly was. Not the divided, struggling world the Kethvari had observed, but a planet surrounded by hidden shipyards, concealed defense stations, and cloaked patrol vessels. 23 years ago, Elena explained, our deep space monitors detected the first signs of your empire's expansion. We tracked your conquest patterns, studied your methods, and prepared accordingly. Everything you've seen of humanity has been carefully designed to make you overconfident. Zethkar felt something cold settle in his stomach. You knew we were coming. We've been watching you for years. Every primitive transmission you intercepted was crafted to make you believe we were helpless. Every desperate defensive position was calculated to feed your arrogance. You didn't conquer 46 worlds through superior strategy, Overlord. You won because nobody was ready for you. Admiral Sarah Chen's voice joined the conversation. From Earth. But we were ready. We've been ready for decades. The truth hit Zethkar like a physical blow. The negotiations, the peaceful first contact, that was all a lie? Not a lie, Elena corrected. A test. We needed to observe your technology, study your tactics, and confirm our intelligence about your methods. Your 3 weeks of diplomatic contact gave us everything we needed to plan your defeat. On the bridge of the Nemesis, Elena's tactical officer reported quietly, "Captain, the remaining Kethvari vessels are powering up their weapons. It looks like they're preparing for a suicide run." Elena nodded. "Expected. Overlord, you have 30 seconds to order your remaining ships to stand down. If they open fire, we will destroy them all." Zethkar looked around his bridge at officers who had served him faithfully for decades. These beings had trusted in Kethvari superiority, believed in their empire's invincible destiny. Now they faced annihilation at the hands of a species they had dismissed as primitive. "My lord," his weapons officer said desperately, "we still have enough firepower to damage their planet. If we're going to die, we can take their cities with us." For a moment, Zethkar considered it. The final gesture of a defeated empire. One last act of destruction before the end. But as he looked at the tactical displays showing the scattered remains of his fleet, he realized the futility of it all. "Stand down," he ordered quietly. "All ships, power down weapons and prepare to be boarded." "My lord." His officers stared at him in shock. "Stand down." Zethkar roared, the weight of defeat crushing down on him. "Can't you see? We've been outplayed from the very beginning. These humans haven't just defeated us, they've been controlling us since the moment we arrived." The Kethvari fleet powered down their weapons, and human boarding parties began transferring to the alien vessels. Elena watched the operation with professional satisfaction, but her mind was already moving to the larger implications of what had just occurred. "Admiral Chen," she said over the secure channel, "we need to discuss what happens next. This victory is going to send shockwaves across the galaxy." Sarah's voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. "Already ahead of you, Captain. I'm receiving reports from our deep space monitoring stations. It seems the Kethvari weren't the only ones watching this battle." Elena frowned. "Explain." "We're detecting quantum communication bursts from at least 12 different directions. Word of what happened here is already spreading to other species. The galaxy is about to learn that the invincible Kethvari Empire just got crushed by a species they considered primitive. As human forces secured the surviving alien vessels, the true scope of humanity's deception became clear. The Kethvari had been watching Earth for months before making contact, studying human communications and military capabilities. But what they hadn't realized was that humans had been carefully controlling what they could observe. Every secret military base the aliens had identified was deliberately visible. Every classified communication they had intercepted was intentionally leaked. The entire human defense network they had cataloged was nothing but obsolete equipment and deliberate misdirection. Meanwhile, humanity's real military strength had been completely invisible, hidden by stealth technology that the Kethvari couldn't detect and concealed in locations they never thought to scan. "It's brilliant," admitted the Kethvari science officer as human technicians examined his equipment. "You made us believe we were spying on you, when actually you were controlling everything we learned." Commander Torres of the human boarding party nodded. "The art of war isn't about having the biggest guns. It's about making sure your enemy doesn't know where your real guns are until it's too late to matter." But the victory came with its own complications. As news of the battle spread, humanity suddenly found itself at the center of galactic attention. The Kethvari Empire had been a dominant force for over 1,000 years. Their defeat would create a power vacuum that other species would scramble to fill. "Captain," Elena's communications officer reported, "we're receiving messages from multiple star systems. Some are congratulations from species that were conquered by the Kethvari. Others appear to be challenges from their allies and rivals." Elena studied the incoming transmissions with growing concern. "How many species are we talking about?" "At least 50 different civilizations, Captain." And those are just the ones we can identify from their signal patterns. Admiral Sarah Chen's voice cut through the chatter. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just become the newest player in galactic politics, and apparently, we've made quite an entrance. On the captured Kethvari flagship, Overlord Zethkar sat in detention, staring at walls that now confined the being who had once commanded fleets across the galaxy. A human guard, young and professional, brought him water and what appeared to be standard military rations. "Tell me something," Zethkar said quietly. "How long have your people been planning this?" The guard considered the question. "Since before I was born, sir. My grandmother worked on the first stealth field prototypes. My father helped build the asteroid shipyards. This has been a multi-generational effort." Zethkar felt a chill of recognition. "You planned for decades to defeat an enemy you had never met." "We planned to survive contact with whatever was out there," the guard corrected. "Turned out to be you. Could have been someone else. But we were going to be ready either way." As the last of the alien vessels was secured and the prisoners processed, Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Nemesis and looked out at the stars. Humanity had won its first interstellar war, but she suspected it would not be the last. The galaxy had just learned that Earth was not the primitive backwater it appeared to be. The question now was what the galaxy would do with that knowledge. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, the galaxy was a very different place. The news of humanity's victory had traveled faster than light across hundreds of star systems, carried by quantum communications that could not be stopped or hidden. The species that had trembled before Kethvari might suddenly found themselves free, while those who had allied with the Empire scrambled to distance themselves from its defeat. Captain Elena Vasquez stood in what had once been Overlord Zethkar's private quarters aboard the former Kethvari flagship. The elegant alien decorations were gone, replaced by human efficiency and function. The ship itself was now the headquarters of humanity's growing interstellar operations. "The Veltari delegation has arrived," announced Commander Torres, entering, with a data pad full of reports. "They're requesting an immediate audience, something about eternal gratitude and alliance proposals." Elena nodded wearily. It had been like this for months. Every species that had been conquered, threatened, or even looked at suspiciously by the Kethvari wanted to meet with humanity. Some brought gifts, others offered treaties, and a few came with barely concealed demands for protection. "Schedule them for tomorrow morning, and make sure Admiral Chen is available for the video conference." The human victory had revealed something that shocked the galaxy. Earth was not alone in its preparations. Admiral Sarah Chen had spent the months after the battle sharing carefully selected information about humanity's true capabilities. The galaxy learned that humans had been monitoring interstellar communications for decades, had established secret observation posts throughout nearby star systems, and had been building their hidden fleet for over 20 years. But perhaps most surprising of all was the revelation that humanity had allies. "Ma'am," Torres continued, "we've also received another message from the Mordoon Collective. They're confirming that their resistance cells are ready to coordinate with our operations against any remaining Kethvari loyalists." Elena smiled grimly. The Mordoon had been one of the Kethvari's earliest conquests, their brilliant engineering, minds supposedly integrated into the Empire's technological development. What the Kethvari hadn't realized was that the Mordoon had been secretly sabotaging their conqueror's equipment for decades, introducing subtle flaws and hidden weaknesses that humans had been able to exploit during the battle. And the Kreshtai? Still refusing formal contact, but our intelligence suggests they've begun open rebellion against Kethvari occupation forces in the Outer Rim. Their message was brief. "The humans have shown the way. Now we finish what they started." The door chimed and Admiral Sarah Chen appeared on the main communication screen from Earth. Behind her, the familiar command center buzzed with activity as humanity adapted to its new role as a galactic power. "Elena, I hope you're ready for this," Sarah said without preamble. "We've just received intelligence that changes everything." "What kind of intelligence?" Sarah's expression was grave. The Kethvari Empire wasn't just a conquest force. They were running from something. Something that made them seem peaceful by comparison. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Explain. According to the data we've extracted from their archives, there's another empire out there. The Kethvari called them the Devourers. They don't conquer worlds like the Kethvari did. They consume them entirely, stripping planets down to bare rock and moving on. Torres looked up from his datapad with alarm. Are they heading in our direction? Unknown. But here's the interesting part. The Kethvari expansion wasn't about conquest for its own sake. They were trying to build up enough military strength to face the Devourers when they eventually arrived. Every species they conquered, every world they claimed, was meant to be a resource in a much larger war. Elena absorbed this information with growing concern. So by defeating the Kethvari, we've potentially left the galaxy defenseless against an even worse threat? That's one way to look at it, Sarah admitted. But there's another perspective. By breaking the Kethvari Empire, we've freed dozens of species that had been forced into servitude. The Mordun, the Veltari, the Kreshtai, and others are now free to use their abilities for defense rather than supporting their conquerors. Elena walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. In the distance, she could see human ships, working alongside alien vessels, sharing technology and coordinating defenses. It wasn't the empire the Kethvari had tried to build through force, but it was something potentially more powerful, an alliance built on mutual respect and shared purpose. Admiral, what's the status of our expansion plans? That's what I wanted to discuss with you. The President and the Joint Chiefs have approved Operation Deepwatch. We're going to establish monitoring stations and defensive positions throughout the local galactic arm. But we're not doing it alone. The screen split to show representatives from a dozen different species. Elena recognized the crystalline features of the Veltari, the metallic skin of the Mordun, and the fierce expressions of the Kreshtai warriors. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of various descriptions, Sarah addressed the assembled group. I present Captain Elena Vasquez, Commander of Humanity's Deep Space Operations. A Veltari representative spoke first, her voice like musical chimes. Captain Vasquez, your species has given ours something we thought lost forever. Hope. We offer our artistic and cultural expertise to help build a civilization worth defending. The Mordun delegate, his mechanical augmentations gleaming under the ship's lights, added, our engineering capabilities are at your disposal. Together we can build defenses that neither the Kethvari nor these Devourers could imagine. But it was the scarred Kreshtai warrior who surprised Elena the most. Humans fight with wisdom, not just courage. This is a combination our people respect. We offer our warrior traditions and our knowledge of combat to strengthen this alliance. Elena looked around at the faces on her screen, both human and alien. What you're proposing is unprecedented in galactic history, isn't it? Completely, admitted the Mordun engineer. Most species either conquer their neighbors or are conquered by them. Voluntary cooperation between equals is almost unknown. Then we'll be the first to make it work, Elena said firmly. But understand this. Humanity won't be the leaders of this alliance. We'll be partners. Each species contributes according to their strengths, and each has an equal voice in decisions that affect us all. Admiral Chen smiled with pride. That, Captain, is exactly why we're going to succeed where others have failed. Over the following months, the alliance that would become known as the Terran Federation began to take shape. Human stealth technology was combined with Mordun engineering and Veltari artistic sensibilities to create ships and stations that were both functional and beautiful. Kreshtai warriors worked with human strategists to develop new tactical doctrines that emphasized cooperation over domination. But perhaps most importantly, the alliance began to spread its message throughout the galaxy. There was an alternative to conquest and empire. Species could work together as equals, sharing their strengths and protecting each other's weaknesses. Not everyone was pleased with this development. Several major powers that had profited from the Kethvari system of domination began making threatening gestures toward the growing alliance. But they faced a problem. How do you attack an enemy you can't see coming? Humanity's gift to the galaxy wasn't just military victory. It was the proof that patient preparation, careful planning, and the wisdom to appear weak while being strong, could overcome any amount of brute force and arrogance. Years later, when the first Devourer scouts finally arrived at the edge of known space, they found something they had never encountered before. A galaxy united not in fear or submission, but in determination. Dozens of species working together, sharing technology and tactics, ready to defend not just their own worlds but each other's. The Devourers had consumed 100 galaxies by appearing stronger than any single species could resist. But they had never faced anything like the Terran Federation, where seeming weakness hid incredible strength, and where the greatest power came not from domination, but from cooperation. Captain Elena Vasquez, now an admiral commanding the largest fleet in galactic history, received the first Devourer surrender message with the same calm professionalism she had shown years before. "This is Admiral Vasquez of the Terran Federation," she broadcast to the defeated enemy fleet. "You made the same mistake everyone else has made. You assumed that because we chose peace we were weak. You thought that because we preferred cooperation to conquest we couldn't fight when necessary." She paused, looking out at the stars that now represented not just humanity's future, but the future of all thinking beings who chose freedom over fear. Welcome to the galaxy where the meek inherited the stars, and the wise learned that the greatest strength comes from knowing when not to use it. The first sign of the alien ships came on a quiet Tuesday morning. The Deep Space Monitoring Station on Mars picked up the signals, massive objects moving toward Earth at incredible speeds. At first, the scientists thought they were asteroids, but asteroids didn't change direction or slow down on their own. Captain Allison Wright was eating breakfast in the Earth Defense Force headquarters when the call came. She dropped her fork mid-bite and rushed to the command center, her coffee forgotten on the table. "What do we know?" she asked, as she entered the room filled with glowing screens and worried faces. "Not much, Captain," said Lieutenant Gary Peters, his eyes fixed on the main display. 7 vessels, each about the size of Manhattan. They've taken position just beyond the moon's orbit. Allison felt her heart race but kept her face calm. As the highest-ranking officer present, the others would follow her lead. "Have they made contact?" "No, ma'am, they're just sitting there." The room fell silent as one of the screens suddenly flickered and changed. A face appeared. At least, they thought it was a face. It had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern and skin that shimmered like metal under light. "People of Earth," the creature spoke in perfect English, its voice deep and smooth. "I am High Commander Zexatoral of the Galactic Hegemony. We have come to welcome your world into our empire." Within an hour, every screen on Earth showed the key. Same face. The message continued, explaining how the hegemony ruled over thousands of worlds across the galaxy. Earth would become its newest addition. "Your technology is primitive. Your defense is laughable," Zexatoral said. "But your species shows promise. Accept our rule and you will prosper under our guidance. Resist and we will reduce your civilization to ashes." President Mason Grant, a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes, called an emergency meeting of all world leaders. For once, countries that usually fought with each other agreed on something. This threat was too big for any nation to face alone. "Captain." "Right," the president said. "You'll lead our diplomatic team. Go meet these aliens, find out what they really want and what we're really up against." Allison nodded, though her stomach tightened at the thought. "Yes, sir. I'll prepare immediately." The trip to the alien flagship took 6 hours in Earth's fastest space shuttle. The inside of the alien ship looked like a cathedral made of living metal. Surfaces pulsed with soft light, and the air smelled like ozone and something sweet Allison couldn't name. High Commander Zexatoral was even more imposing in person. Standing nearly 8 feet tall with skin that rippled like quicksilver, he looked down at the human delegation with all 4 of his eyes. "Captain Wright," he said, not bothering to ask her name. "Your species intrigues us. So young, yet so ambitious." "We come seeking peaceful relations," Allison said, sticking to the script prepared by Earth's best diplomats. "Earth wishes to learn about the galaxy and—" The alien made a sound like metal grinding. It took Allison a moment to realize he was laughing. "You misunderstand your position, Captain. This is not a negotiation. The hegemony does not request or suggest. We command and worlds obey. His voice hardened. Earth will submit to our rule. Your resources, your people, your planet, all will serve the hegemony. Allison felt her face, flush with anger but kept her voice steady. And if we refuse, then we will demonstrate why no species has successfully resisted us in 10,000 years. The alien waved his hand, and a hologram appeared between them. It showed a planet much like Earth, green and blue. Then, in a flash, the world turned, red with fire, its surface cracking open like an egg. That was the last world that chose pride over wisdom, Zexatoril said. They are now extinct. Their name is forgotten. Their culture erased. Back on Earth, the news of the alien ultimatum spread quickly. People reacted with fear, anger, and for some, a strange sense of excitement. Humans had wondered for centuries if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, but it came with a terrible choice. Dr. Samantha Kelly had been working late in her lab when she heard the news. As Earth's leading expert on fusion energy, she understood better than most what a war with such advanced aliens might mean. But something about the hegemony's technology, glimpsed in the video feeds from the alien ships, bothered her. Their engines, she muttered, reviewing the footage for the 10th time. The energy signatures are all wrong for a civilization that advanced. She called her friend Major Jack Daniels, a military strategist with a reputation for thinking outside the box. Jack, I think there's something off about these aliens. Their tech, it's impressive, but not as advanced as they want us to believe. Jack listened carefully. You think they're bluffing? Trying to scare us into submission without a fight? Maybe. Or maybe they've stopped innovating. Empires get comfortable. They rely on their size, not their ingenuity. Meanwhile, President Grant addressed the United Nations. For the first time in history, every member nation was in attendance with not a single empty seat. The galactic hegemony has given us 30 days to surrender our world, he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. They expect us to spend this time arguing amongst ourselves, weakening our resolve with fear and doubt. He paused, looking around the room. But they don't understand humans very well, do they? Throughout our history, we have faced overwhelming odds. We have stared into the abyss of extinction, and every time, we have fought back. The room erupted in applause. We have 30 days, not to decide whether to surrender. That decision is already made. We will not. But 30 days to prepare, to plan, to show this hegemony what happens when you threaten humanity. Across the globe, nations began to mobilize. Old enemies shared military secrets. Scientists like Dr. Kelly worked around the clock, looking for weaknesses in the alien technology. Special Agent Olivia Martinez assembled a team for what might be the most dangerous spy mission in human history, infiltrating an alien warship. And in a secure bunker beneath Washington, D.C., Major Jack Daniels spread out star charts and began planning humanity's first interstellar war. On the alien flagship, High Commander Zexatoril received a message from one of his lieutenants. The humans are moving ships, High Commander. They appear to be preparing defenses. Zexatoril's skin rippled with amusement. Let them. Their weapons cannot harm our vessels. Their resistance will make their eventual submission all the sweeter. The lieutenant hesitated. There is something else, High Commander. Our sensors detect unusual energy readings from several locations on their planet. They appear to be working on something. For the first time, a flicker of concern passed across the alien's features. Monitor these readings. However, do not interfere yet. They have 30 days to come to their senses. Most species do, when faced with their own extinction. Back on Earth, as the sun set over the Pacific Ocean, Captain Wright stood at the window of her quarters, watching the alien ships gleam like new stars in the night sky. They think we'll break, she said to the empty room. They think we'll kneel. She picked up a photograph of her parents, both military pilots who had died defending others. But that's not what humans do when cornered. She placed the photo back on the shelf. When threatened, when pushed, when told to submit, She looked back at the alien ships. We respond with fire. The Emergency Defense Coalition formed within 3 days of the alien ultimatum. Nations that had once pointed nuclear weapons at each other now shared their military secrets freely. Old borders seemed meaningless, with 7 massive alien warships hanging in Earth's sky. Dr. Samantha Kelly hadn't slept in days. Her lab, once a quiet place of scientific research, now buzzed with activity as engineers and scientists worked around the clock. The walls were covered with diagrams of her experimental fusion technology. "The problem isn't power," she explained to the group of military officials gathered around her workbench. "We've had fusion power for decades. The problem is focusing it into a weapon that can penetrate their shields." She held up what looked like a small glass cylinder filled with swirling blue light. "This is the answer. A fusion cascade that creates a directed energy blast. In theory, it should disrupt their shield harmonics." President Grant leaned forward, his face tired but his eyes sharp. "In theory, Doctor?" "We need to test it against actual hegemony technology," Dr. Kelly admitted. "Without a sample of their shields, it's just an educated guess." The room fell silent until Major Jack Daniels spoke up. His uniform was wrinkled, suggesting he hadn't changed clothes in days. "Then we get a sample," he said simply. Special Agent Olivia Martinez was used to dangerous missions. As one of Earth's top covert operatives, she had infiltrated terrorist cells and hostile military bases, but nothing had prepared her for sneaking onto an alien spaceship. "The plan is simple," she told her team of 6 elite soldiers. "Their scout ships land every few days to collect biological samples. We intercept one, disable the crew, and access their computer systems." Lieutenant Commander Ryan Powell, an expert in electronic warfare, raised his hand. "And if their computers don't work like ours if we can't read their language?" Martinez smiled grimly. "That's why you're coming along, Powell. You're going to figure it out." The team moved under cover of night to the predicted landing site in the Amazon rainforest. The alien scout ship arrived exactly when expected, settling silently in a small clearing. 2 tall, silver-skinned aliens emerged, their 4 eyes scanning the environment as they collected plant samples. Martinez gave the signal. Tranquilizer darts designed by Dr. Kelly hit both aliens. They collapsed without a sound. "Move in. We have 10 minutes before the mothership notices something's wrong," Martinez ordered. Inside, the scout ship was cramped but oddly beautiful. Flowing metal surfaces pulsed with soft light, and the air felt strangely thick. Powell went straight to what appeared to be the ship's main console. "I need time to figure this out," he said, his fingers hovering over the alien controls. "Work, Fest," Martinez replied, positioning her team to defend the entrance. Powell surprised everyone by connecting his tablet directly to the alien ship's systems. Their technology is advanced, but the basic principles are the same. Digital is digital, even across the galaxy. 8 minutes later, as alien voices began to chatter over the ship's communication system, Powell downloaded a massive amount of data and nodded to Martinez. "Got it. Everything they know about us, their battle tactics, and their shield frequencies." The team slipped away just as a larger alien ship descended to investigate. By morning, they were back at EDF headquarters, and Powell's stolen data was being analyzed by the best minds on Earth. Engineer Frank Johnson was the first to spot the weakness. A former video game designer turned military contractor, he had a knack for finding patterns others missed. "Their tracking systems rely on quantum entanglement," he explained to Captain Wright and Major Daniels. "It's why our stealth technology doesn't work against them. But there's a flaw." He pointed to a complex diagram on his screen. "They can track us perfectly, but only if they know what to look for. If we can mask our energy signatures to mimic natural phenomena, they wouldn't see us coming," finished Daniels, a rare smile crossing his face. Across the globe, Earth's industrial capacity shifted to war production. Factories that once made cars now produced fighter spacecraft fitted with Dr. Kelly's fusion weapons. Silicon Valley tech companies reprogrammed their satellites based on Powell's intelligence. And in orbit, the first of Earth's new defense platforms took shape, hidden from hegemony sensors by Johnson's countermeasures. "High Commander," Zextoral watched Earth with growing impatience. His four eyes narrowed as he received the daily report from his intelligence officers. The humans continued to resist, his lieutenant said. They've established this emergency defense coalition and appear to be preparing for conflict. Foolishness, Zextoral replied. We have conquered 1,000 worlds more advanced than this one. Their preparations are meaningless. There is something else, High Commander, the lieutenant continued hesitantly. Our scout ship in Sector 7 went silent temporarily. When contact was restored, the crew reported memory gaps, and our sensors have detected unusual energy patterns from several Earth facilities. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed Zextoral's metallic features. Increase surveillance. If they are developing new weapons, I want to know immediately. But the hegemony's arrogance worked against them. Their technology was designed to detect other advanced civilizations. Earth's relatively primitive systems, now cleverly disguised by Johnson's techniques, slipped under their notice. And what they did detect, they dismissed as too primitive to be a threat. 20 days into the 30-day ultimatum, Captain Wright convened a war council in the EDF's underground command center. Dr. Kelly's fusion weapons are ready for deployment, she reported to President Grant and the assembled military leaders. Engineer Johnson has found a way to mask our ships from their sensors, and Lieutenant Commander Powell's intelligence has given us their battle tactics and communication protocols. Major Daniels stood up, pointing to a holographic display of the solar system. I propose a surprise attack before the ultimatum expires. They're expecting a formal response on day 30. They won't be prepared for us to strike on day 29. The Mauer room buzzed with nervous energy. What Daniel suggested was audacious, perhaps even reckless. President Grant looked around the room, his gaze settling on each person before he spoke. 20 years ago, we were still fighting each other over oil and religion. Now we're planning humanity's first interstellar battle. He sighed heavily. Is this our only option? Is there no diplomatic solution? They don't want diplomacy, Mr. President, Captain Wright said quietly. They want submission. Those are the only terms they understand. Grant nodded slowly. Then we'll speak to them in a language they do understand. He turned to Major Daniels. Your plan has a name? Yes, sir. Operation Prometheus. After the Titan who gave fire to humanity, Grant observed, and was punished by the gods for his defiance, Dr. Kelly added softly. The President stood, his decision made. Begin final preparations. In 9 days, we show this galactic hegemony that humans don't submit. We fight back, and we fight with fire. As the meeting ended, Captain Wright remained behind, studying the holographic images of the hegemony ships. She couldn't help but wonder if Earth was making the right choice. Billions of lives hung in the balance, but then she remembered the destroyed world Zextoral had shown her, the last species that had resisted. Either way, the aliens offered, only submission or extinction. Then we choose to fight, she whispered to herself, because that's what humans do. Day 29 arrived with a tense silence across the planet. Families huddled around screens waiting for news. Soldiers said goodbye to loved ones, not knowing if they would return. In orbit, Earth's hidden fleet waited for the signal to attack. Colonel Eric Davis stood on the bridge of the EDF Defiance, the largest warship humans had ever built. At 52, he was older than most of his crew, with gray hair and a face weathered by years of military service. His hands were steady as he reviewed the battle plan one last time. All ships report ready, Colonel, his communications officer said. Davis nodded. Remind all captains, radio silence until my mark, and Engineer Johnson's stealth systems must remain active until we're in firing range. Across the fleet, 200 ships carrying humanity's best weapons and bravest fighters prepared for battle. Each vessel carried Dr. Kelly's fusion weapons, untested against alien shields but representing Earth's best hope. On Earth, Commander Nicole Rogers sat in a windowless room surrounded by screens and computers. Her team of hackers and tech specialists had one job: disrupt hegemony communications at the exact moment the attack began. Systems ready, Commander, said a young tech specialist. We've isolated their communication frequencies based on Lieutenant Commander Powell's intelligence. Rogers checked her watch. 20 minutes to go. In the White House Situation Room, President Grant and his advisors watched a live feed from the fleet. Captain Wright stood beside the president, her face tense but determined. "They still have no idea we're coming," she said, checking the latest intelligence reports. "Their sensors show no signs of detecting our fleet." Grant nodded grimly. "Let's hope Engineer Johnson's countermeasures hold." In his massive flagship, High Commander Zexatoril prepared to receive Earth's surrender. His 4 eyes blinked slowly as he reviewed the ceremonial protocols for accepting a new world into the hegemony. "The humans have been quiet recently," his lieutenant noted. "Our observers report decreased military activity on the surface." Zexatoril's skin rippled with satisfaction. "As expected, they have accepted the inevitable. By tomorrow, Earth will be part of the hegemony, its resources and people serving our empire." Neither alien noticed the subtle distortions in space where Earth's fleet waited, hidden by technology that made them appear as nothing more than random energy fluctuations. Colonel Davis watched the clock count down. 5 minutes remaining. He thought of his wife and daughter back on Earth, of the world they would wake up to tomorrow. It would either be the dawn of human defiance or the beginning of alien subjugation. "All ships, this is Colonel Davis," he said into the fleet-wide channel. "Prepare to engage. Weapons hot. Remember your training." The seconds ticked by. 3 minutes. 2 minutes. 1. "All ships, execute Operation Prometheus. Now." 200 ships dropped their stealth systems simultaneously, appearing on hegemony sensors like ghosts materializing from nothing. Before the aliens could react, the human fleet fired their first volley. Brilliant blue beams of concentrated fusion energy streaked across space. In the White House, Rogers gave the command. "Initiate electronic warfare. Shut them down." Her team launched a massive cyber attack using the access codes and security weaknesses Powell had discovered. Throughout the hegemony fleet, communication systems failed, sensors gave false readings, and ship-to-ship coordination collapsed. On the hegemony flagship, alarms blared as the first human attacks hit their shields. Zexatoril rose from his command chair, his 4 eyes wide with shock. "Impossible," he shouted. "Where did these ships come from? Why didn't we detect them?" "Human vessels closing fast," his tactical officer reported, voice shaking. "Our forward shields are down to 60%. Return fire. Destroy them all." Zexatoril commanded, his skin changing color with rage. The hegemony ships began firing. Back, their powerful weapons lancing out at the human fleet. Several Earth vessels exploded instantly, their crews lost in brilliant flashes of light. Colonel Davis gripped his command chair as the Defiance shook from a near miss. "Press the attack. Target their command ship." Dr. Kelly's fusion weapons were working better than anyone had dared hope. The beams penetrated hegemony shields, leaving smoking holes in the aliens' once invulnerable hulls. But the cost was high. Human ships were being destroyed at an alarming rate. "Colonel, we've lost 35 ships already," his tactical officer reported grimly. Davis nodded. "Continue as planned. All ships concentrate fire on the flagship." The human fleet clustered closer, focusing their attack on Zexatoril's command vessel. Its shields flickered and failed under the concentrated assault. On the alien flagship, systems failed one after another. Fires broke out on multiple decks as human weapons found their mark. "High Commander, we must retreat," Zexatoril's second-in-command urged. "The humans have weapons we did not anticipate." Zexatoril smashed his fist into a console. "No, no primitive species defies the hegemony. Launch planetary bombardment now." Several hegemony ships broke formation, diving toward Earth. Their weapons, ports opened, ready to rain destruction on the planet below. "Colonel, 3 enemy vessels are moving to attack Earth directly," Davis's tactical officer reported urgently. "Intercept squadron. Move to defend Earth," Davis ordered. "All other ships, continue the attack on the flagship." Captain Allison Wright watched from Earth as the space battle unfolded on tactical displays. When she saw the 3 hegemony ships heading toward the planet, she turned to President Grant. "Sir, we need to activate the orbital defense platforms now." Grant hesitated only for a second. "Do it." Wright gave the command, and around Earth, hidden defense satellites revealed themselves. They had been disguised as communication satellites or space debris, their true purpose concealed from hegemony sensors. As the alien ships approached, the defense platforms fired. More of Dr. Kelly's fusion weapons struck the unprepared hegemony vessels. 2 exploded immediately. The third, damaged but still operational, fired a single devastating blast at Earth before it was destroyed. The alien weapon struck a military base in northern Russia, vaporizing it instantly and leaving a crater 5 miles wide. Thousands died in seconds. News of the attack spread quickly across Earth, but instead of causing panic, it hardened humanity's resolve. In orbit, the battle continued. The human fleet had lost nearly half its ships, but the hegemony forces were in disarray. Their coordination was shattered by Commander Rogers' cyber attacks, and they had never expected such effective resistance. On the hegemony flagship Zex's Toral watched in disbelief as his mighty fleet was being defeated by what he had considered a primitive species. "High Commander, we must withdraw and regroup," his lieutenant pleaded. "We can return with reinforcements." Zex Toral's 4 eyes narrowed. "Very well. Signal the retreat, but this is not over. Earth will pay for this defiance." As the alien ships began to withdraw, Colonel Davis wanted to pursue. But the human fleet had suffered too many losses. Of the original 200 ships, only 93 remained operational. "Stand down," he ordered. "Let them go. For now." As the hegemony fleet retreated to the edge of the solar system, celebrations erupted across Earth. The first battle had been won, though at a terrible cost. In the White House, President Grant addressed the world. His face was solemn despite the victory. "Today, humanity proved that we will not submit to tyranny, no matter how powerful our enemy. We have won the first battle, but the war has just begun. The hegemony will return, and we must be ready." In orbit, Colonel Davis looked out at the Debris field of destroyed ships, both human and alien. "We've shown them what humans can do," he said quietly. "And this is just the beginning." 3 months after the first battle, Earth was a different place. Cities had moved underground. Factories operated day and night, producing weapons and ships. Children learned math by calculating missile trajectories, and grandparents worked. Assembly lines, everyone doing their part in the war effort. The hegemony had returned as promised, with a fleet 3 times larger than before. The space around Earth had become a battlefield, with skirmishes breaking out daily. Neither side had gained a clear advantage, but humanity was learning fast. Lieutenant Amy Patel stood in her lab surrounded by pieces of alien technology. At 32, she was the youngest lead scientist in the Earth Defense Force, with a specialty in electromagnetic physics. For weeks, she had studied debris from destroyed hegemony ships, looking for weaknesses. "I think I've found something," she told Captain Wright, who had come to check on her progress. "Their ships use quantum shielding, but there's a flaw in how they handle electromagnetic pulses." She pointed to a twisted piece of alien metal. "See this? When hit with a strong enough EMP, their shield generators overload. It's like their version of a circuit breaker, but it takes nearly 30 seconds to reset." Captain Wright's eyes widened. 30 seconds without shields? "Exactly," Amy nodded eagerly. "Long enough for our weapons to do serious damage." Across the base, Major Jack Daniels was training pilots in a new fighting style. The large hegemony ships were powerful, but slow to maneuver. Human vessels, though smaller and less heavily armed, could move much faster. "Don't engage them head-on," he instructed the pilots gathered around a holographic display. "Use hit-and-run tactics. Strike from unexpected angles, then retreat before they can return fire." A young pilot raised his hand. "But sir, their targeting systems can track us anywhere. How do we surprise them?" Daniels smiled grimly. "Engineer Johnson has developed new countermeasures. Your ships will carry devices that briefly clone your heat and electromagnetic signatures. The aliens will see 5 targets where there's only 1. Meanwhile, Dr. Kelly and Engineer Johnson were working together on a new weapon. The lab was filled with complex equipment, and the air crackled with energy. "We're calling it the Nova Cannon," Dr. Kelly explained to President Grant during his inspection of the facility. "It combines my fusion technology with a focused electromagnetic pulse designed by Johnson." She pointed to a massive device at the center of the lab. "It creates an explosion similar to a small star going supernova, but contained in a directed beam. The EMP will disable their shields and the fusion blast will do the rest." President Grant frowned. "Will it be ready in time? Our intelligence suggests the hegemony is planning something big." "We need another week," Engineer Johnson said. "Maybe 2. Grant nodded. "Do what you can. Our scouts report the hegemony is bringing in a new type of ship, something bigger than we've seen before." In space, Captain Wright led a daring mission. Intelligence had discovered that the hegemony was holding human prisoners on a converted cargo vessel. Most were civilians, captured during raids on outlying colonies, but some were military personnel with valuable information. "Approach with stealth active," Wright ordered from the bridge of her ship, the EDF Intrepid. "Engineer Johnson's countermeasures should hide us until we're right on top of them." The human rescue ship glided silently toward the massive hegemony prison vessel. When they were less than a mile away, Wright gave the order: "Disable their engines and communications. Boarding parties, prepare to launch." The Intrepid fired precisely targeted shots that disabled the alien ship without risking the prisoners. Within minutes, teams of human soldiers were cutting through the hull and entering the vessel. Wright led one of the boarding parties herself. Inside, the alien ship was dark and humid, with corridors that seemed to pulse with an eerie light. They encountered only light resistance. The prison ship wasn't heavily defended. "Life signs indicate prisoners are being held 2 decks down," reported her second-in-command, checking a handheld scanner. They fought their way to the prison section, moving quickly through the alien vessel. The hegemony guards were unprepared for the attack and fell quickly to human weapons. In the prison area, they found over 300 human captives living in terrible conditions. Among them was Dr. Benjamin White, a specialist in xenobiology who had been captured during the early days of the war. "Captain Wright," he said weakly, as she helped him to his feet. "You have no idea how glad I am to see you." "Can you walk, Doctor?" she asked. "We need to move quickly." "Yes, I think so," he replied, his voice growing stronger. "And Captain, I have critical information. I've been studying our captors. I've discovered something that could change everything." As they hurried back to the Intrepid, Dr. White explained what he had learned. During his captivity, he had managed to obtain tissue samples from the aliens. His analysis had revealed a surprising weakness. "Their bodies are highly sensitive to specific radiation frequencies," he explained once they were safely aboard Wright's ship. "It's why they wear those protective suits when they board our vessels. Without protection, the right frequency of radiation makes them temporarily paralyzed." Captain Wright immediately understood the implications. "We could develop weapons that target their biology directly." Dr. White nodded. "Exactly. And there's more. The hegemony isn't just an empire, it's almost a hive mind. The ruling class shares a collective consciousness. If we can disrupt that connection..." Back on Earth, Dr. White worked with Dr. Kelly to modify the Nova Cannon design. They adjusted the weapon to emit the specific radiation frequency that affected hegemony biology. At the same time, Lieutenant Commander Powell made another important discovery while analyzing the data from their rescued prisoners. "The hegemony isn't as unified as they want us to believe," he reported during a high-level meeting. "They've conquered thousands of species, but many are just waiting for a chance to rebel." He displayed images of different alien races, all subjugated by the hegemony. "Several of these species have tried to contact us secretly. They're watching how we fight, and they're starting to think the hegemony can be defeated." President Grant leaned forward, intrigued. "You're suggesting potential allies?" "Exactly, sir. If we can show that humans can successfully resist, it might trigger a galaxy-wide rebellion." The meeting was interrupted by an urgent message. The hegemony fleet was moving, forming up in attack position. The new ship intelligence had warned. About had arrived. A massive vessel twice the size of any they had seen before. They're preparing for a major assault, Colonel Davis reported. All their ships are converging on a single formation. How long until the Nova cannon is ready? Grant asked Dr. Kelly. 24 hours, Mr. President. We just need to finish the final calibrations. Grant looked around the room at the tired but determined faces of Earth's defenders. Then we have 24 hours to prepare. This could be the decisive battle. In orbit, human ships moved into defensive positions. On the ground, the Nova cannon was hurriedly prepared for battle. And across the stars, subjugated species watched, waiting to see if humans would succeed where they had failed, if the fire of human resistance would spread throughout the galaxy. The day of the final battle arrived with a strange calm. Earth's remaining fleet, now reinforced with newly built ships, formed a protective ring around the planet. At its center was the EDF Intrepid, commanded by Captain Allison Wright. Beside, it flew the EDF Defiance with Colonel Eric Davis at the helm. Between them, attached to the Defiance's hull, was the Nova cannon, humanity's greatest weapon and perhaps their last hope. "All ships report ready," said Wright's communications officer. "The Nova cannon is powered up and standing by." Wright nodded, her face showing the strain of months of war. "Signal Colonel Davis. It's time to execute Operation Firestorm." The human fleet moved as one, breaking orbit and heading toward the massive hegemony armada. Leading the enemy forces was a ship larger than any they had seen before. The Dominion, High Commander Zex Toral's new flagship. On the Dominion's bridge, Zex Toral watched the approaching human fleet with all four of his eyes. "They are bold," he said to his officers, "coming to meet us instead of cowering behind their planet's defenses." "High Commander," his tactical officer reported, "they have some kind of new weapon. Our sensors detect unusual energy readings from one of their ships." Zex Toral dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. "It matters not. Today we crush this human resistance once and for all. Then we will make an example of their planet." The two fleets closed rapidly. When they were still outside normal weapon range, Colonel Davis gave the command. "All ships execute attack pattern Omega. Nova cannon, prepare to fire on my mark." The human fleet suddenly split into 5 groups, each taking a different approach, vectored toward the hegemony fleet. The maneuver confused the aliens. They had expected a direct confrontation. "Spread out and engage them," ordered Zex Toral. "Destroy them all." As the fleets engaged, the space between them lit up with weapons fire. Human ships darted in and out, using Major Daniel's hit-and-run tactics to great effect. They targeted the smaller hegemony vessels first, weaving through enemy fire with remarkable skill. On the EDF Defiance, Dr. Kelly monitored the Nova cannon's power levels. 90% charged, she reported to Colonel Davis. "We'll need to get closer to the Dominion for maximum effect." Davis nodded grimly. "Helm, take us in. All other ships, provide covering fire." The Defiance and Intrepid pushed forward, taking the brunt of the hegemony's attack. Several human ships moved to protect them, sacrificing themselves to ensure the Nova cannon reached its target. Lieutenant Commander Powell, stationed aboard the Intrepid, led the Cyber Warfare Division. "Commencing electronic attack now," announced. Throughout the hegemony fleet, communications began to fail. Navigation systems gave false readings. Weapon targeting became unreliable. The aliens, so dependent on their technology, found themselves fighting blind. "Get those systems back online," Zex Toral shouted as his flagship's screens flickered. "What is happening?" "It's the humans," his officer replied. "They're somehow disrupting our network. And High Commander, something else. We're detecting signals from our own ships, communications we can't decipher." Zex Toral's skin darkened with rage. Impossible! What he didn't know was that Lieutenant Commander Powell had activated hidden programs within the hegemony network, programs that sent signals to the enslaved species serving on alien ships. The message was simple. Now is the time to rise up. Throughout the hegemony fleet, members of conquered species who had been forced to serve began to sabotage their own ships. Engines failed, weapons misfired, shield generators shut down. Meanwhile, the Defiance pushed closer to the Dominion. The massive alien flagship concentrated its fire on the approaching human vessel. Shields down to 20%, reported the Defiance's tactical officer. We can't take much more of this. Colonel Davis set his jaw firmly. We only need to get a little closer. All power to forward shields. Aboard the Intrepid, Captain Wright watched the Defiance taking heavy damage. Move to support Colonel Davis, she ordered. Prepare to deploy Lieutenant Patel's EMP devices. The Intrepid surged forward, placing itself between the Defiance and some of the hegemony fire. Its point defense systems worked frantically to intercept incoming attacks. In range, Dr. Kelly announced on the Defiance. Nova cannon fully charged. Fire, ordered Colonel Davis. The Nova cannon activated with a blinding flash. A concentrated beam of energy, combined with the radiation frequency Dr. White had identified, struck the Dominion directly. The massive alien ship's shields flared and collapsed under the assault. Immediately following the Nova cannon's blast, the Intrepid launched Lieutenant Patel's EMP devices. They detonated around the Dominion, sending pulses of electromagnetic energy washing over the flagship and nearby hegemony vessels. Direct hit, reported the Defiance's tactical officer. Their shields are down. Captain Wright didn't waste the opportunity. All ships, concentrate fire on the Dominion. Lieutenant Commander Powell, prepare the boarding party. As the human fleet pounded the defenseless hegemony flagship, Powell led a small team in a stealth shuttle toward the massive vessel. Their mission, capture High Commander Zexatoral alive. On the Dominion's bridge, chaos reigned. The radiation from the Nova cannon had affected the hegemony crew just as Dr. White had predicted. Many lay paralyzed at their stations. Others moved sluggishly, their connection to the collective consciousness disrupted. What have they done? To us? Gasped Zexatoral, struggling to move. When Powell's boarding party breached the bridge, they found little resistance. High Commander Zexatoral, the mighty leader of the galactic hegemony, could barely stand. High Commander, Powell said, approaching the alien. By authority of the Earth Defense Force, you are now our prisoner. Throughout the battle, the news spread quickly among the hegemony fleet. Their invincible leader was captured. Their flagship was taken. Their communications were filled with messages of rebellion from the species they had enslaved. One by one, hegemony ships began to retreat. Some exploded from within as their oppressed crew members rose up against their masters. Others simply turned and fled. Within hours, the space around Earth was clear of enemy vessels. For the first time in months, the skies above the planet were quiet. On Earth, celebrations erupted as news of the victory spread. But President Grant and the military leadership knew this was not just the end of one battle. It was the beginning of something much larger. A week later, Captain Wright stood in a secure conference room as representatives from 7 formerly enslaved species met with human leaders. They had arrived in small ships, having overthrown their hegemony commanders. For 10,000 years, the hegemony has ruled through fear, said a tall, slender alien with crystalline skin. No species dared to resist, until humans showed it was possible. We fought for our freedom, Captain Wright replied simply. As anyone would. Not anyone, said another alien, this one small and covered in blue fur. It takes a special kind of courage to fight when the odds seem impossible. President Grant stepped forward. What happens now? The hegemony still controls thousands of worlds. Not for long, said the crystalline alien. Your victory has ignited a fire that cannot be extinguished. Rebellions are breaking out across the galaxy. The hegemony is collapsing. Grant nodded thoughtfully. Then perhaps it's time to build something better in its place. Not an empire based on submission, but an alliance based on mutual respect and freedom. And so, from the ashes of war, the Galactic Alliance of Free Worlds was born. With Earth as a founding member, the alliance would spread the fire of liberty throughout the stars. The species that had once been enemies now worked together to liberate other worlds from hegemony control. Captain Wright watched from the bridge of the Intrepid as the first joint human-alien fleet prepared to depart. Their mission, to bring freedom to worlds still under hegemony rule. The Empire demanded submission, she said quietly, and humans responded with fire. Her new alien first officer nodded in understanding. A fire that now burns across the galaxy,